Welcome to some more Goblins vs Gnome Card previews. Yeah, okay, that was a little cheesy, but oh well. Alright, so earlier I did a 25 card review, and then while watching the coverage and everything, they've released 13 more cards for our enjoyment. Thanks, Blizzard. So, alright, the updated review. So, we're going to go back over all these cards, and the new one's going to be pretty cool. Alright. Goldshire Footman with Divine Shield. It's a mech. Welcome to the age of Undertaker mech. Seriously, with so many death rattles in the set so far that we're seeing, Undertaker is still going to have value. It's not going to get phased out. Though I think some of the original core set stuff is definitely going to be moving out of the way because the amount of power you're now getting out of max cards and this set just trumps everything but the legendaries in that. But not everything. There are still going to be some persistent ones that still remain. Alright. But this is actually a really cool card. Great defensive option. Just stat-wise, it's going to soak up 3 damage. That's cool. Okay, Blingatron 3000. At first, I thought this might be actually a little bit too overpowered, and then I looked at it again. 5 mana for 3/4, and RNG weapons for both players. Now, 5 mana is kind of a lot. You could use this as a kind of modify the weapon, but you're taking a chance of it backfiring on you. But you're getting a weapon yourself, so that's kind of cool, I guess. One thing I could see this being used on is like if you're playing up against a lot of hunters. Oh, Eagle Horn Boat. No, get the hell, get that out of there. But then you might give them Ashbringer, so that's a downside. Same with Doomhammer. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to use this on a Doomhammer. But then the question comes, wouldn't Harrison Jones just be better? Yeah, it would be. But it's a mech. There's a lot of mech synergies in this. It's kind of nifty. You also get a weapon yourself, so it could work, but most of the time I'm going to say it's going to backfire on you. Alright, Bomb Lobber. One moment. Alright, back during the early days of Hearthstone, during CBT, there was this saying, Mad Bomber OP. And it was. It literally was like the answer to pretty much every aggro because we didn't have a bunch of cards that were worthwhile. Bomb Lobber is so much better version of Mad Bomber, and even his bigger brother, Matter Bomber. 5 mana for 3/3. That stat just kind of sucks, but when you look at its battle cry, that is huge. That is huge. I will say that the Weblord is going to probably see a little bit more increased play as a tech card in this new meta, but we'll see. But this guy, I love him. Alright, the Boombot, we're going to cover that once we get to Dr. Boom, so we're just going to skip past him real quick. Okay, so the Cogmaster has +2 attack while you have a mech. I like this guy. He's effectively a 3/2 for 1 mana as long as you have a mech. Well, there's a shit ton of mechs out there. Some really dirt cheap and have taunt, i.e. Annoyatron. So you're going to almost always be able to get value out of this guy. Now, it needs to be said that he only has 2 life. This is extremely easy to kill. Alright, so don't bank on this guy having any kind of persistence past 1 or 2 turns. And if he does, well, wow, you're lucky. So, but I like him. I think that that's some really cool synergy there, and that's something we don't generally see outside of classes. Alright, unless it's a Murloc. Okay, Dr. Boom. 7 for a 7/7, and it has a battle cry. Okay, so just on stat line, Big Game Hunter says hi. It does, really. So this is actually really simplistic to take care of. It'll almost, if this guy becomes popular, Big Game Hunter becomes popular, and his value goes down. But even if you Big Game Hunter this guy, you still have these two of these to deal with. Now, there's an interesting combo synergy with Undertaker that I think makes this a great turn 8 play with Undertaker, because now you're looking at 4 minions on the board, one of which is a 3/4, yes, and another one that's a 7/7, and these little guys here. So doing an AoE is a really dangerous thing at that point. You blow these guys up, you could wipe your own board very easily. or possibly eat 8 damage to the face. It's possible. Not very likely, but it's possible. So yeah, definitely this guy can be hit or miss, but as he rises in value, so does Big Game Hunter, so I think that kind of checks him very nicely. All right, now the first card that almost everybody is going to try to craft, the Enhanco Mechano. Now, if I have to explain why this card is so good, I'm going to anyway. You really need to pay attention to Hearthstone if you really need this explanation. RNG ability here of giving either Wind Fury, Taunt, or Divine Shield. One of them will go to all your minions. But as I read the card, I think we've overlooked a very huge flaw here. A lot of people seem to think it'll give all your minions a Wind Fury, all your minions a Taunt, or all your minions a Divine Shield. This guy could actually do something completely different, which I think everybody seems to have missed on. Say you've got 4 minions on the board, right? You play this guy. So minion 1, say, gets Wind Fury. Minion 2 gets Taunt. Minion 3 gets Divine Shield. Minion 4 gets Wind Fury. Now, he won't get any buffs because it does specifically say in there your other minions. All right? So it's either going to randomize which abilities are going out, or it's going to make it all of one of the 3 listed there. Which, if it's all of the 3 listed there, that is some huge snowball potential. If it's individually, that kind of sucks, but it's still okay. Obviously, if it's one ability, Wind Fury is going to be extremely baller when combined with, say, Unleash the Hounds. Yes, you just made a board full of young Dragonhawks. Brings me back to the old Hunter OTK. Even the Divine Shield works with that very nicely. Persistent Beast still on the board, and we all know why beasts are just so horrible of a thing to have to deal with against Hunter. So keep that in mind. All right, moving on. The Explosive Sheep. Yes, we needed more anti-aggro options, and there's a lot in this guy. It's the Death Rattle. Cool. However, you're definitely never going to want to play this with Undertaker because it hurts your own board as well. But using it as a tool against aggro is pretty amazing. You could actually turn for this with a priest very nicely. You go Wild Pyromancer, Explosive Sheep, and then you silence one of your opponent's minions. Okay, so here's what ends up happening. You get the 1 burst from the Wild Pyromancer, and then this guy goes off, does a 3 burst. Normally, a priest would have to, like, say, wait till turn 5 to do this. Now they can do it cheaper. And any class that has a 0 cast spell could get that same effect. It's not just a only priest thing. Any class can do it. So, Rogue, congratulations, you now have a new AoE. Hunters, congratulations. Hell, even Druids got an AoE. Yeah. Moonfire actually got some value, yo. So that's going to be some really interesting synergies, and I can't wait to see what people come up with because of it. Because we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more aggro in this game, like mech aggro reality check, all right? Most of the professional deck builders that I know and talk to are just frothing at the mouth over all the mech possibilities. All right. So now we're going to go to the Flame Cannon. This is the first class card. It's Mage. Deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. All right, so there's 2 ways of looking at this. It's either a worse Frostbolt. Okay, sure. Because Frostbolt, at least you can direct to your enemy's face if need be, and that combos up very nicely with Ice Lance. Or you could look at it from the other end of the spectrum where, hey, now my Frostbolt is only going to go into my enemy's face because I've got this guy to kind of help mitigate what's on my opponent's board and allow me to survive a little bit longer. That's how I see it, and I think that's really, really awesome. The fact that it can kill an Azure Drake, pretty freaking OP. All right. Goblin Blast Mage. This is yet another Mage card. So What happens when you take a solid 5/4 body, make it 4 mana, and give it a battle cry that if you have a mech, you basically get a knife juggler effect from hell? Well, you get a lot of lulls, first of all. This guy is definitely going to be an interesting anti-aggro option. But because of the RNG aspect of it, you can never count on it completely. It almost feels like they gave a little bit of what shamans normally get over to the mage with the RNG factor there. But it fits very well with the rest of the set, as well as what mages can and should be doing. So I like it. I think it's solid. A 5/4 body for 4 mana is extremely great value. All right. The Matter Bomber. Yes, we already saw the lesser statted version of this, but with the less downside of its battle cry. So, it's a 5/4 body for 5. I've already stated why that is a really strong body. It is, stat-wise, that's amazing. They're not as good as this one, but this is a neutral, so you're going to have to pay one more for set stat. So, we're looking at Harrison Jones stats here. But, deal 6 damage, randomly split between all other characters. Now, anybody who's ever played with Mad Bomber knows that there is the chance, and oh my god, will it do this many a times, that it will screw you over. Now, the cool thing is, if you play Mad Bomber and your opponent has a really big board, the likelihood of it actually hitting your face is lessened. But, you know, Mad Bomber don't care about the odds. He's going to hit you in the face whether, like, statistically he should or shouldn't. So, Mad Bomber will screw you like that. So now you've got his bigger brother that can do the same exact shit. So this is a very dangerous card to play in so many aspects. It can ruin your own tempo, ruin a lot of things, but it's hilarious when it works. Do I think that this will see play? Maybe here or there in some sort of gimmick deck, just for the lulls, but other than that, no. Okay, the Mech Warper. I like this guy. This guy has a lot of great synergies with the rest of the Mech tribe that we've been seeing, and will lead to some hilarious shit. Okay, so this is basically a summoning portal on a River Croc's body. So all your minions cost 1 less that are mechs. So, this becomes 3, this becomes 1. Yeah, I see Mage is playing some of this. But yeah, so you can get a lot of these like low-cost mechs out for dirt cheap, and that's going to lead to some interesting stuff. This is definitely going to be a prime removal target every single time because you don't want your opponent getting that kind of boost. Okay, the Thermoplug. Because leper gnomes weren't already disgusting, we're going to kill things and have them form leper gnomes on our side of the board. And it's a 9/7 body. Okay. For 9 mana, its ability is kind of cool. I like it. He's really easy to take out. Again, see Big Game Hunter, Shadow Word Death, things of that nature. So I think you're going to have to play this while you already have board control. That way you can get those leper gnomes. Think kind of how people use Kel'Thuzad, and that's where this guy comes in. If he persists past 1 turn, you win. But most likely he's not going to persist past the turn he comes into play. But he is a mech, so you can get him out cheaper. Let's not forget. And that's kind of cool. All right, the Micro Machine. So at the start of each turn, not only your turn, but your opponent's turn as well. So that by the time you can attack with this guy, he will be a 3/2. That's actually pretty freaking cool. The downside here is he does not have stealth, thus he's really easy to take out or silence or whatever. But, meh. You knew it was going to happen. All right, Mimiron's head. Yeah. Okay, so this guy is actually really, really annoying, and this is going to set up the lull factor of a very disgusting, overpowered OTK. If you actually get this guy out with a couple other mechs, your next turn is going to be pretty hilarious. The idea here is to have 2 mechs on the board, play this guy, and conceal. This would be ideal for rogues, alright? Basically, if that happens, congratulations, you've won the game. And you'll see why here in a minute. But other classes can definitely use this. I worked some of the numbers with Mr. Jodo, and we tried to see exactly how much damage this guy could output, and we figured out the most damage he could output came from Priest. Yeah, just no. So we had a lot of fun with that. But Shaman can get easily 40 damage out of this guy. Rogues can get 48 damage out of this guy. So the age of big taunts to kind of prevent this might actually show up if playing this guy becomes that popular. Alright. Piloted Shredder. I love this. I love cards that when they die give you a minion. This is why Sludge Belcher is so effective. But here's where it gets a little wonky here. Summons a random 2-cost minion. Random. Could be anything that's 2 cost. So it could be a Mech Warper. That would be actually pretty cool. It could be an Explosive Sheep. That would be extremely cool. You know, a Noyatron. Or Blood Mage Thanos. Or Loot Hoarder. You get the idea here. Alright, so there's a lot of possibilities with this. Alright. Then you've got his bigger brother, who scares the ever-loving crap out of me. So it's a 6/4 body. That's 1 more life than here. You can kill this with a Shadow Word Death. Alright. So that's cool. But it slides under Big Game Hunter. So here's where I get scared. Alright, so you kill this off. It summons a 4/4. Or 4-cost minion. So I went and I looked at all the 4-cost minions. The scariest ones there would be like the 5/4 Panda, the Dark Iron Dwarf, Violet Teacher, Wailing Souls, things of that nature. Get a really... Well, actually, Wailing Souls would be hilarious if that came out, because that would really screw over all your death rattle real quick. No, actually it wouldn't. That's right, it would not. But there's just a lot of things that can come out from it that are really nasty. Sengens, even Ogre Magi could come out. And I think this is like the one time people would be happy to see an Ogre Magi come out. So, but this guy gives me some heartburn of thinking of how to play him effectively or how to deal with him when I see him on the board. I don't want him ever spawning everything. This is like super Savannah High main here. It really is. Alright, so the Shrinkmeister. Okay, so why is this guy so powerful? I mean, it's only for 1 turn. Hi, you have a Ysera. No, your Ysera dies to a Shadow Word Pain. The lulz. This is effectively what this is going to do. It can either kill the minion or use in conjunction with, say, a Cabal Shadow Priest, allow you to take it. And then at the end of the turn, oh, look at that. You got a full Ysera for 8 mana. You pay 1 mana less, 2-card combo to grab Ysera. That means your mind control is still free to grab something else. So the old adage, he who plays mind control first loses, yeah, that went right out the window. Okay. Sneed's Old Shredder. When I first saw this, I was like, oh god, stat-wise this is horrible. It better have a really good thing. Death Rattle, okay, that's not a really good thing. And then I read what it was. Summon a random legendary. Yeah, that definitely is not a good thing. There are so many, you know, flavor story cards like Lore Walker Show and crap like that in this game that getting those is going to suck. I mean, getting a Nat Pagal would actually be just a huge slap in the face. And there's so many like lower end ones that would really be horrible. Like Cogmaster Overspark. Congratulations, you got a 3/3 that does absolutely jack. But it could possibly summon in some better stuff like a Ragnaros, a Ysera, a Tyrion. Yes, random legendary. Does not say what class excluded, so that could happen. So, I mean, there are those possibilities of you getting great, but also some great possibilities of you going bad. This is like a super web spinner that's specifically targeted at legendaries, which, because of that, I think makes it horrible. All right, Spider Tank. 3/4 body with absolutely no battle cries, death rattles, or any kind of special thing. This is a solid freaking minion. All right, seriously. Um, this goes like head to head with Iron Fur Grizzly and wins. All right. So 3/4. Yes, please. Unstable Portal. Add a random minion to your hand. It costs 3 less. Okay, at first I was like, oh yeah, I could see some great thing. And then I read random minion. It could summon any minion. Class, neutral, whatever. So the chance of this actually being all that great, nah. But I do think it's kind of cool, especially used with priest, or not priest, with mage, to kind of get like another body on there. And you could get like a really great body. Could you imagine a mage pulling, let's say, King Crush with this? All right. So King Crush, 9 mana card, now goes down to 6. So you play this turn 8, you can actually play King Crush that turn. Yeah. All right. So the upgraded repair bot. Now at first I thought this was kind of niche, but then I realized that there's so many mechs coming into the game that it's basically going to become what is it? Robostone, Heroes of Macross. Anyway. So there's going to be so many mechs coming into the game that this actually has extreme value. This is a Temple Enforcer, but better. It's so much better. So it's a 5/5 for 5. That's a solid body. You're going to get that out easily. But then it's also competing for space against Loatheb. So, and Sludge Belchers. But giving a minion +4 health, that's extremely good. I like that. I really, really do. So we'll see. We'll see how well that works out. Okay, so the Voltron for all intents and purposes. All right. Remember how I said that this thing was pretty nasty? Yes, there you go. Mega Fury. 4 times attack a turn. So, yeah. This guy could easily hit triple-digit numbers with Priest. The obvious class that's going to benefit the most out of this is going to be Rogue. I'm sorry, it is. Just because Conceal exists. And guess what, Hunters? Your Flare now has an even greater use. So, but he is really nasty. You put any kind of buff on him, like Blessing of Mights, really nasty. Blessed Champion becomes even more disgusting. And you don't actually have to pay for him if you read the card. This gets summoned on there. So you're going to have your full mana to deal with this guy. That's, wow. Okay, Velen's Chosen. I like this card. Priest aggro with a burst finisher. Definitely a possibility with this. You throw this on to, say, an Arcane Golem. It now becomes a 6/6 for 6 mana with charge. And, oh, look at that. You can follow it up with 2 Mind Blasts for a grand total of 18 damage. Yeah, it's possible. Mind you, that's a 10 mana combo, so... Alright. The Gnomish Experimenter. Battlecry. Draw a card. If it's a minion, transform it into a chicken. So, alright. If you're running a very spell-heavy deck like, let's say like Miracle or a Shaman deck, this actually could be really helpful in speeding up your deck. The downside here is you draw a Ragnaros, he becomes the most fiery, angry chicken ever invented. And that sucks. But, yeah. Alright, Recombobulator. Dude, there is so much value in this card. I mean, it's disgusting. It really is. When you look at how many new minions are coming into the game and things of that nature, it's nasty. Now, here's another little interesting side effect of this card, alright? So, Giants. Now, one of the things that, like, Paladins used to love doing was, like, reducing the effectiveness of a giant by playing Humility or Outdoor Peacekeeper or whatever. So you throw Recombobulator, it literally changes the minion. So that debuff goes away. And here you got, oh look, another giant. Which they've added new giants, by the way. So, yeah. That's kind of disgusting. It's an interesting tech card to prevent that. So, alright. Clockwork Gnome, 1 mana for a 2/1. Alright, that seems pretty legit. Death Route, put a spare parts card in your hand. Spare part. Okay. We're going to actually get to see what these are here in a minute. So, yeah. But, okay, stat-wise, it's a Death Rattle. It's a 2/1. It's 1 mana cost. This is going to be great with Undertaker on so many levels. Yeah, I can see some really disgusting aggro decks based off of the Undertaker concept right now, and mechs. All right. Clockwork Giant. Now, we've all seen Mountain Giant, which is cards in hand, but nothing for cards in your opponent's hand. We haven't really seen anything like that since the early days of CBT, when Priest used to have this really nasty OTK they did, based on your opponent's hand size. So, here, you have a giant that if you're playing against a control, you're going to get out pretty much every single time. You know, I was like, oh yeah, you want to heal and grab 4 cards? Thank you very much for the free or the cheap-ass giant and the top wall. Now, I think what we're going to see is this end up going in, say, like a handlock style deck, but it won't replace Molten Giants in any way, shape, or form. Instead, it's going to just be there for the control matchups, right? And that's going to be really important. Okay, next up, Bouncing Blade. Oh my god, it's a warrior spell. Yes, warrior. Okay, so deals 1 damage to random minion, repeat until minion dies. I love this in warrior control concept. Seriously, you could get so much value out of that. It's like, okay, well, let's see, we're in the late game here. I know, let me drop down a double Armor Smith, and let me throw this out. Yes, my opponent has minions on the board. Here's what's going to happen. This is going to bounce around hitting your own minions and hitting his. So you're going to get massive amounts of armor while wrecking his stuff as well. And, oh, yes, by the way, now Execute becomes really freaking easy to pull off. Do I think this is better than, say, a Death Spite? Not really, because Death Spite, you can kind of control where things are going and direct it. But I think that this is something that will work well with Death Spite, sure. So I see lots of possibilities with this card, very much so. In other cases, it's a great anti-aggro card. If you have no minions on the board, you play this down while they have a bunch of little minions. The downside is if the first target it hits only had 1 life. That sucks. All right. The Tinkertown Technician. All right, so let's take a little look at this guy here. All right. Battle Cry. If you control a mech, gain +1/+1 and put a spare part in your hand. Now, I'd like to point out that this is a combination of Ysera, Shade and Haxoramus kind of thing, but very specific to having a mech. So this is really, really dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. This could be really nasty. And also, again, that spare part card. So we're going to be getting the spare part cards here real soon. I mean, like a couple cards. All right, so the last of the non-spare part cards is the Ogre Warmaul. Now, I know this is kind of hard to tell what class it is. I can assure you that it's not Paladin. This is actually a warrior card. 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. Okay. That sucks. I don't think anybody would ever deliberately tech this card. Ever. So why is this in the game, you might ask? Like, oh, that kind of sucks. I mean, but if they only have 1 minion on the board, this is great tempo play. Sure. All right. That's great. But if they do have more than 1 minion, you have a chance of failing. Also, remember our good friend Blingatron. So that could be really hilarious there. All right. So now we're going to get to the spare parts cards, which are effectively the dream cards of this set. Okay, so armor plating. This is actually a neutral ability for all intents and purposes. Yes, neutral spells do exist. Armor plating. Give a minion +1 health. Okay. Meh. Alright. Reversing switch. Swap a minion's attack and health. Whoa. That could be extremely disgusting. Energy coolant. Freeze a minion. We haven't seen any freezes really other than, like Frost Shock and everything mages have. So to see something else that causes freeze is actually kind of cool. I like it. Alright, Finicky Cloak or Cloak Field. Give a friendly minion stealth until end of turn. Alright, this is kind of cool. I can see a lot of value in this. It's not overpowered in any way, shape, or form. Give a minion taunt. That is pretty disgusting. That is really disgusting. If you get like a couple of these, you can almost always have a taunt wall up. Time Rewinder. Return a friendly minion to your hand. Ow, wow. Yeah, can we say Battle Cry, Battle Cry, Battle Cry? Yeah. This is basically, sapping yourself. It's not even a Shadow Step because Shadow Step at least makes things cheaper. But, that's class specific. So, yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. Whirling Blades. Give a minion +1 attack. That's actually kind of cool. If you can get like 2, 3 of these in your hand and then drop it down with a charge minion, or better yet, look at the cost. You do some things with that. None of which are overly that great, but it's an option. This can turn your like lower end stuff and be able to like take out Sludge Belcher, Loatheb, whatever. So this is kind of like the banana without the plus to life, and that's kind of cool. That makes it balanced too in a lot of ways. All right, so that is the sets so far. 120 cards. We've seen 38 of them, though I would like to point out that 7 of those are dream cards for all intents and purposes, or spare part cards. So yeah, a lot of new stuff, a lot of great potential. I can't wait to see the rest of the set. I think we're going to end up seeing a couple things happening. All decks are pretty much going to be what we have now will not be played coming up in the future. I highly recommend everybody like drop as much money as they can to get a complete set of this stuff because this is going to be the new meta. But Shade and Axe Rama stuff, that's still going to be played greatly. Core set, other than legendaries and a couple epics and rares, probably not as much. There's a huge rumor mill going around about Mr. Gadgetan Auctioneer getting a massive nerf. So, yeah, Miracle might no longer exist. Sorry, guys. But, wow, this is a whole new age of Hearthstone coming up, and it's going to be pretty freaking awesome. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to the revised review. Please like, subscribe, whatever. So yeah, this is Shiv saying night-night.